My hands were still shaking when I read the sentence that said my husband wanted full custody of my 2 children because I was emotionally unstable, financially dependent, and potentially dangerous. The folder was black, expensive, and hidden behind his passport case in the locked drawer of his home office. I had opened it looking for our passports because Grant kept telling the twins we were flying to Italy in 3 weeks to celebrate our 12th wedding anniversary. He had sold the trip like a second honeymoon at dinner, smiling across the table while our 10-year-old twins asked if real pizza tasted different in Italy. But there were no plane tickets in that folder. There were divorce papers. My name looked strange in the document, like it belonged to a woman I had never met. A woman who slept too late, forgot her children, drank too much, screamed at neighbors, and contributed nothing. Not the woman who had woken up at 5:30 every morning for years to pack lunches, check homework, manage pediatric appointments, remember spirit days, buy science fair boards, wash baseball uniforms, and hold 2 feverish children on opposite sides of her chest while Grant was closing deals. Not the woman who had left a career in private equity because Grant said his job at Whitmore Capital was becoming too demanding and the children needed one steady parent. Not the woman who had quietly turned a modest inheritance, smart property purchases, clean investments, and several boring-looking LLCs into more money than Grant even knew existed. According to the petition, he was the provider. I was the burden. According to the petition, he was the stable parent. I was the risk. The room seemed to tilt. His office smelled like leather, cologne, and cold air. Diplomas hung behind his desk, beside magazine features and a family beach photo where Grant stood slightly apart, smiling like a man posing for an ad about success. My phone buzzed on the desk. Grant, long night at the office. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you. I stared at those 2 words until they stopped meaning anything. Then I typed, no problem. I'll keep dinner warm. My fingers were steady when I sent it. That scared me more than the crying would have. I sat in his chair, opened his laptop, and tried the password he always mocked me for knowing, his mother's birthday followed by our anniversary month. It worked in less than 30 seconds. The first thing I found was an email thread with a divorce attorney named Melissa Crane, the kind of woman wealthy men hired when they wanted to look wounded while destroying their wives. Grant had been planning this for 8 months. He had a timeline, a custody strategy, a communications plan, and notes about controlling the narrative before Nora becomes defensive. He had messages about presenting me as isolated, anxious, and dependent. Witnesses. My stomach tightened. Then I found the private investigator invoices. Photos of me at the grocery store, Lily's orthodontist, the elementary school, a coffee shop with 2 moms from Noah's soccer team, and walking alone after dinner. Every ordinary movement had been watched and twisted into something suspicious. One report said, subject appears withdrawn. Sat alone in vehicle for 11 minutes before entering school. I remembered that day. I had been crying in the car because Lily had asked why Daddy never came to her piano recitals anymore, and I did not know how to answer without breaking her heart. Another report said, subject purchased 3 bottles of wine. I had bought them for a neighborhood fundraiser Grant agreed to host and then skipped. Another report said, subject displayed agitation in public. I had been arguing with the pharmacy because Noah's asthma inhaler had been filled incorrectly. Grant was not just leaving me. He was building a cage and labeling it concern. Then I found Ava. Ava Bennett. 25, his assistant. Pretty in the careful way young women learn to be when powerful men tell them they are different from other girls. There were photos of her in a condo overlooking Lake Michigan, kissing Grant in a parking garage, and leaving a private clinic. To disconnect, I saw the ultrasound. 12 weeks. Baby Salazar? Ava had written with a heart. My husband had not just planned to take my 2 children from me. He had planned to move them into a new family before they even understood their old one was dead. I covered my mouth, but no sound came out. The next folder froze the blood in my veins. It was labeled Legacy Client Adjustments. Grant worked as Chief Financial Officer for Whitmore Capital, a private wealth management firm that handled money for retirees, widows, small business owners, and old Chicago families who liked their finances quiet. I had never interfered with his work. He had made sure of that. You handle the home, he would say whenever I asked a question. I handle the money. But the spreadsheets in that folder were not normal. Small transfers moved through advisory fees, shell entities, consulting payments, art purchases, crypto wallets, and bridge loans. I knew enough to understand what I was seeing before I wanted to believe it. Grant was stealing. Not from hedge fund sharks. Not from billionaires who would barely notice. From elderly clients. Widows. People whose entire retirement depended on the belief that a man in a navy suit would protect them. And suddenly, the custody petition made perfect sense. If he filed first, if he painted me as unstable, if he convinced a judge I had access to family finances and erratic behavior, he could turn me into the problem before anyone looked closely at him. He was not just divorcing me. He was preparing to frame me if his fraud collapsed. I sat there in the blue glow of his screen, surrounded by the trophies of a man who believed I was too soft to fight back. Then I laughed once. It was a small, ugly sound. Grant had made the mistake arrogant men always make. He thought because I made school lunches, remembered birthdays, and smiled through business dinners, I had stopped being dangerous. He forgot who built the foundation under his pretty life. He thought we were worth about $4.5 million. The real number was different. Through trusts, clean investments, properties, family entities, and accounts he ignored because they did not feed his ego, the legitimate assets under my control were worth more than $34 million. Grant knew how to perform wealth. I knew how to build it. I spent the next 3 hours copying everything: divorce papers, emails, messages, investigator reports, photos with Ava, the ultrasound, attorney notes, wire records, client spreadsheets, property transfers, and crypto wallet IDs. I copied it all onto an encrypted drive in a private server he did not know existed. At 2:17 in the morning, I opened my own dashboard and moved the first protected amount from a holding company in my maiden name into a trust that had been set up for Lily and Noah years earlier. Not illegal. Not hidden. Not stolen. Protected. Then I froze access to accounts Grant had no right to touch, documented every move. When I finally walked upstairs, the house was silent. I stopped outside the twins' room. Lily slept curled around a stuffed rabbit she claimed she was too old to need. Noah had kicked his blanket onto the floor. Their nightlight painted soft stars across the ceiling. They still thought their father was busy. They still thought Italy was coming. They still thought families broke only in movies. I sat between their beds and let myself cry for exactly 4 minutes. Then I wiped my face and went to bed beside my husband. Grant was asleep on his back, breathing peacefully, one hand resting on his chest like a king in a portrait. I looked at him in the dark and felt something inside me harden. For 12 years, I had been his wife. For 10 years, I had been the mother of his children. But at 3:06 that morning, I became his biggest mistake. The next morning, I made pancakes. Not because I was calm. Because Lily had a spelling test, Noah had gym day, and children deserve breakfast even when their parents' lives are on fire. Grant came downstairs in a charcoal suit, smelling like cedar and lies. He kissed the top of my head while checking his phone. Big day, he said. Another board meeting? Client dinner. Maybe late again. Lily looked up from her plate. Dad, are you still coming to my recital Friday? Grant did not even pause before lying. Wouldn't miss it, sweetheart. I watched him smile at her, and my hand tightened around the coffee pot. Noah said, can we still go to Italy? Grant laughed. Of course. Your mom and I need a romantic vacation, right? He winked at me. I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. After the kids left for school, his mother arrived without warning. Evelyn Salazar had never knocked in her life. She entered homes like they owed her rent, wearing cream cashmere, pearls, and permanent disappointment. Nora, she said, looking me up and down. You look tired. Good morning, Evelyn. Grant kissed his mother's cheek. Mom stopped by to talk about the gala. Of course. Whitmore Capital's annual charity gala was in 2 days. Grant was being honored for ethical leadership in community finance. The irony was so thick I nearly choked on it. Evelyn sat at my kitchen island and watched me rinse plates. You know, she said, these events matter. Grant can't have any awkwardness around him. I turned off the faucet. Awkwardness? She gave me a thin smile. You've seemed fragile lately. Grant did not look at me. He scrolled through his phone. Fragile, I repeated. Eulunsight. Nora, no one is attacking you. But women sometimes lose themselves after children. You stopped working. You don't socialize the way Grant does. You're emotional. Dependent. A little intense with the twins. A little intense. I thought about the private investigator photos. The custody petition. The lies already rehearsed in this kitchen before I had even been served. Grant finally looked up, pretending concern. Mom's just worried. No, I said softly. She's not. The room went quiet. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Grant's face changed for half a second, a flicker of warning. I picked up a dish towel and dried my hands. But don't worry, I said. I'll be perfect at the gala. Grant smiled again, relieved, because men like him confuse silence with surrender. That night, he brought home takeout and acted affectionate. He talked about Ava like she was only an assistant, a hardworking young employee who looked up to him. He told me the gala would be good for the family brand. He suggested I wear the navy dress because it made me look less washed out. I let him talk. Every word was a nail he handed me willingly. At the gala, he humiliated me in public. It happened slowly, the way cruelty often does when wealthy people dress it up as humor. The ballroom at the Palmer House was filled with donors, bankers, lawyers, politicians, and women who smiled while calculating net worth. Grant moved through them like a celebrity, one hand on my lower back. Ava was there in a black dress, her hair pinned neatly, one hand resting near her stomach whenever she thought no one was watching. Evelyn stood beside her like a queen choosing a successor. When someone asked if I still worked in finance, Grant laughed. Nora retired into motherhood, he said. Full-time lunchboxes, full-time emotional management. The group chuckled. I smiled. A man from his firm said, must be nice, not having to worry about markets anymore. Grant squeezed my waist. Trust me, she worries enough for both of us. More laughter. Ava looked down, pretending not to enjoy it. Then Evelyn said, Grant has carried so much on his shoulders. Some women don't realize what that costs a man. I looked at her, and for the first time in 12 years, I did not try to make her like me. No, I said. Some women realize exactly what things cost. Grant's fingers dug into my side. His award speech came 20 minutes later. He stood on stage under warm lights, talking about trust, stewardship, protecting vulnerable families, and the sacred responsibility of managing other people's futures. I watched people applaud him. I watched Ava wipe a tear. I watched Evelyn beam. And I understood then that exposing him privately would not be enough. He had built his reputation in public. I would bury it there too. After the gala, in the car, napped. I stared out at the city lights slipping over the windshield. I thought you liked honest women. He laughed bitterly. Don't start acting clever, Nora. It doesn't suit you. There it was. The voice beneath the husband. The contempt he had kept polished for years. You know what your problem is, he continued. You think raising kids gives you moral authority. It doesn't. You don't understand pressure. You don't understand what I do. You don't understand how the real world works. I turned to him. Then explain it to me. He smirked. I've been explaining it for 12 years. You just weren't listening. He thought that hurt me. It didn't. It confirmed I was done loving the version of him I had invented to survive. When we got home, I checked the twins, then walked into the guest room and called my older sister Brooke. Brooke answered on the second ring. Nora? It's midnight. I found divorce papers. She was silent for 1 second. Then her voice went cold. What did he ask for? Everything that matters. By 9 the next morning, I was in Brooke's law office with an encrypted drive, 2 coffees, and a rage so controlled it made her stare at me twice. Brooke had built her family law practice by making powerful men regret underestimating quiet wives. She looked like a suburban mom, carried herself like a prosecutor, and had once told me, the most dangerous woman in any courtroom is the one who has receipts. She opened the files. For 40 minutes, she did not speak. Then she pushed back from her desk and said, this is not a divorce. This is a campaign. I know. He wants the kids, the public story, and enough control over the finances to bury evidence. I know. He's going to say you're unstable. I know. Her eyes softened then. Are you? I almost laughed. I was married to him for 12 years. Of course I'm damaged. But I am not unstable. Brooke nodded. Good answer. She called in 2 people before lunch, Daniel Park, a forensic accountant with the emotional range of a locked vault, and Marisol Reyes, a private investigator who had once found a hidden offshore account because a man posted a reflection of his yacht paperwork in an Instagram story. Daniel reviewed the financial files first. His jaw tightened. Your husband has been siphoning client money through layered advisory fees and fake consulting entities, he said. Small enough to avoid immediate panic, large enough to become catastrophic. He escalated in the last 18 months. How many victims? I asked. Too early to say. But not 2 or 3. Marisol flipped through the investigator reports Grant had commissioned against me. He was manufacturing a custody record, she said. These observations are garbage, but enough garbage arranged neatly can look like smoke. Brooke leaned back. And judges hate smoke around children. I swallowed. There's more, Marisol said. She placed 3 photos in front of me. Grant and Ava entering the Gold Coast condo. Grant and Ava leaving Northwestern's private clinic. Ava sitting in Grant's passenger seat, crying while he held her face. She's pregnant, I said. Yes, Marisol answered. And she's been helping his attorney collect details about your routines. But I don't think she knows everything. Why? Marisol pointed to one photo. That's not the face of a co-conspirator in control. That's the face of someone who realizes she's replaceable. For the first time, I felt something other than hatred toward Ava. Not forgiveness. Recognition. Grant did not love women. He recruited them. At 4:12 that afternoon, Grant texted. We need to talk tomorrow. Lunch? Just us. No drama. I showed Brooke. She smiled without warmth. Perfect. Perfect. He thinks he's about to manage you. She opened a drawer and handed me a small recorder. Illinois recording law is tricky, she said. So we do this clean. Public place. You ask questions. We'll rely on what's admissible, what he puts in writing, and what he confirms after. But Nora. Yes? Do not lose your temper. I looked at the photos on the table. My husband with his pregnant assistant. My children turned into leverage. Elderly people robbed in silence. I won't, I said. And I meant it. The next day, I wore the navy dress he liked because it made me look less washed out. Grant had chosen a quiet downtown steakhouse. He stood when I arrived, kissed my cheek, and gave me the sad smile of a man rehearsing generosity. Nora, he said. You look beautiful. Thank you. He ordered wine for himself and sparkling water for me without asking. Another tiny control. Another habit I would never tolerate again. For 10 minutes, he performed grief. He said we had grown apart. He said we wanted different things. He said he still cared deeply for me. He said the children needed consistency. Then he slid a folder across the table. I did not touch it. What is this? A path forward. His voice was gentle. Practiced. I opened it. He was offering me the house, temporary support for 5 years, and visitation every other weekend after a transition period. In exchange, I would not contest custody, challenge certain business assets, or interfere with professional matters outside the marriage. I looked up. Every other weekend? His eyes softened in a way that made me want to vomit. Nora, you're overwhelmed. The twins need structure. I can provide that. You're barely home. That will change. Because Ava will help? His face went white. For 3 seconds, the restaurant disappeared. Then he recovered. I don't know what you think you know. I know she's pregnant. His jaw tightened. She has nothing to do with this. Your pregnant assistant has nothing to do with you requesting full custody of our children? He leaned across the table. Lower your voice. I did. That frightened him more. Are you planning to move Lily and Noah into the condo with her? Nora. Is that the transition? He looked away. You always do this, he said. You get emotional and make things ugly. There it is. What? The line you practiced. He sat back, anger flashing. You need to be realistic. I have the income. I have the stability. I have the reputation. You have what? A few accounts you barely understand and a history of anxiety. The old me would have defended herself. The new me asked, what about the Florida properties? His expression tightened. What about them? And the art purchases? The crypto wallets? The client adjustment entities? Now he was not pale. He was gray. Nora, he said very quietly. You need to be careful. Why? Because you don't understand what you're looking at. Then explain it. He stared at me, weighing whether I was stupid, dangerous, or both. Finally he said, you focus on the kids. I handle the money. That's how it's always worked. I almost smiled. There it was. The sentence. The arrogance. The separation he had built himself. You handle all of it? I asked. Yes. The business assets, the transfers, the advisory structures. His voice sharpened. Yes. And if you're smart, you won't start digging into things that could hurt this family. I closed the folder. Thank you, Grant. For what? For being clear. He reached for my wrist. I pulled away. His face hardened. Don't make this a war. I stood. You already did. At 4:30, Brooke filed an emergency petition. At 4:47, Whitmore Capital received a secured whistleblower packet through outside counsel. At 5:10, regulators were notified. At 5:22, Grant was escorted out of his office by federal agents while Ava tried to delete files from her workstation. At 5:41, my phone rang. Grant. I let it go to voicemail. Then he called again. And again. And again. By the time I picked up the twins from school, I had 17 missed calls, 9 texts, and 1 message from Evelyn that said, whatever you think he did, remember your place as a mother. I deleted it. Lily climbed into the car first, tossing her backpack onto the floor. Mom, Dad didn't come to the recital practice. I know, baby. Noah buckled himself in. Is he still working? I looked at both of them in the rearview mirror. Their faces were open. Innocent. Still trusting me to make the world make sense. Your dad is dealing with serious consequences for choices he made, I said carefully. But you are safe. You are loved. And I am not going anywhere. Lily's lower lip trembled. Are you and Dad getting divorced? I pulled into a quiet corner of the parking lot and turned around. Yes. Noah froze. Because of us? No, I said, so firmly both of them blinked. Never because of you. Adults make choices. Some choices hurt people. But children are not responsible for adult mistakes. Lily started crying first. Noah tried not to, which broke my heart worse. I climbed into the back seat and held both of them while the school parking lot emptied around us. That night, we ate cereal for dinner because none of us could handle real food. The twins slept in my bed, one on each side, their breathing slowly evening out. At 11:03, Brooke called. The judge granted the emergency hearing. Tomorrow morning. I closed my eyes. Custody. Temporary protections are on the table. But Grant's attorney is going to come hard. Let her. Brooke paused. Nora, there's something else. My grip tightened on the phone. What? Daniel found a pattern. Grant moved money from several elderly client accounts into entities tied to family holdings. I sat up slowly. Tied how? Not controlled by you. But close enough to imply you benefited if someone wants to muddy the water. He was setting me up. Yes. I looked at my sleeping children. For a moment, the room narrowed to a single truth. Grant had not merely betrayed me. He had prepared a trap that could have taken my children, my name, my freedom, and the future I had built for them. Brooke's voice came through the phone. Nora. I'm here. There is a chance tomorrow gets ugly. I looked toward Grant's office down the hall, where his diplomas still hung, where his chair still faced the room like a throne, where he had planned my destruction between emails to his mistress. Good, I said. Good. If he wanted quiet, he should have chosen a different woman. The courtroom smelled like old paper, burnt coffee, and fear hidden under expensive perfume. Grant entered without handcuffs, because men like him are allowed dignity until evidence becomes too heavy to ignore. He wore a navy suit and the expression of someone offended by consequences. His attorney, Melissa Crane, walked beside him in heels sharp enough to sound like punctuation. Evelyn sat behind them, spine straight, pearls glowing against her black dress. She looked at me like an employee who had stolen company property. Brooke squeezed my hand once before standing. The judge was a woman in her 60s with silver hair, tired eyes, and the kind of calm that made liars nervous. Brooke began. Your Honor, this is not a routine custody dispute. My client discovered that her husband prepared a divorce filing based on fabricated allegations, hired surveillance to manufacture evidence of instability, concealed assets, and may have attempted to place marital holdings near the path of financial misconduct now under regulatory review. Melissa Crane stood immediately. Your Honor, this is an outrageous attempt to distract from Mrs. Whitmore's emotional volatility. Mrs. Whitmore. She used Grant's last name like a leash. The judge looked at her. Sit down. You will have time. Brooke presented the custody petition Grant had drafted. Then the investigator reports. Then photos of me doing ordinary things labeled suspicious. Then emails between Grant and Melissa discussing narrative control. Then Grant's own settlement proposal. Then the written message where he told me I should not dig into things that could hurt this family. Melissa objected 11 times. The judge overruled her 8 times. Grant sat still, but I saw the sweat gather along his hairline. Then Brooke played the restaurant audio that was legally usable because Grant had repeated the key statement in a follow-up voice message after I texted him, asking, "Did you really mean I should focus on the kids because you handle all the money?" His voice filled the courtroom. Yes, Nora. I handle the money. All of it. You never needed to understand the business side, and frankly, you still don't. The room went quiet. That sentence did what 100 explanations could not. It separated me from the financial machinery he had tried to drag toward me. The judge looked at Grant. Mr. Whitmore, did you prepare a petition requesting primary custody based on concerns about your wife's stability? Grant's attorney touched his arm, but he answered. Yes, Your Honor. Because I was concerned. The judge glanced at the investigator reports. Concerned that she attended school pickup? Concerned that she bought wine for a fundraiser? Concerned that she sat in a parked car for 11 minutes? Grant's face reddened. It was a pattern. No, the judge said. It was surveillance without substance. Evelyn shifted behind him. Then Brooke delivered the blow I had not expected yet. Your Honor, we also request immediate protection around the children because Mr. Whitmore's mistress, who is pregnant, has been involved in gathering information about the minors and was present in communications discussing post-divorce living arrangements. The judge looked up. Pregnant mistress? Melissa closed her eyes. Grant turned toward Brooke with murder in his face. And for the first time all morning, I smiled. Not big. Not cruel. Just enough for him to see I knew. The judge granted temporary primary custody to me, barred Grant from removing the twins from school or the state, restricted unsupervised contact, froze disputed assets, and appointed a financial monitor. It was not the final victory. But it was the first door slamming in his face. Outside the courtroom, Evelyn came at me before Brooke could stop her. "You selfish little snake," she hissed. "You are destroying this family." I looked at her pearls, her perfect hair, her trembling mouth. "No," I said. "I'm saving what's left of it." She slapped me. Hard. The hallway went silent. My cheek burned. Grant grabbed his mother's arm, not because he cared that she hit me, but because cameras were pointed at us. Brooke stepped between us. "Thank you, Evelyn." Evelyn blinked. "For what?" "For doing that in a courthouse hallway." Marisol, standing 10 feet away, lifted her phone. Evelyn's face collapsed. "That clip never went online because I refused to turn my children's grandmother into a viral joke. But it went to the court. And it mattered." By the end of the week, Ava's attorney contacted Brooke. "She wants to talk," Brooke said. "No, Nora. No. She may have evidence." I hated that the word evidence still had power over me. We met in a conference room at Brooke's office. Ava arrived without makeup, swallowed by a beige coat, one hand resting on her stomach. She looked 25 for the first time. Not polished. Not smug. Just young and terrified. "I know you hate me," she said. "I don't have room for hate right now." That was not kindness. It was exhaustion. Ava started crying before she opened her folder. "I thought he was leaving you because you were cruel to him," she said. "He said you controlled the kids. He said you refused to let him be happy. He said you had money hidden and were unstable." I said nothing. "He told me if I helped document things, it would protect the twins from chaos." Brooke's face did not move. Ava pushed the folder forward. "He made me create a timeline. Your appointments, school schedules, when you were alone. He asked me to access files. At first I thought it was divorce stuff. Then I saw client names. Old people. Transfers. I asked questions. He said I was hormonal and stupid." Her voice broke. I looked at her stomach. "And the baby?" "He said we'd be a family. He said Lily and Noah would adjust. He said kids are resilient." Something cold passed through me. Kids are resilient. The favorite lie of adults who want children to survive damage they never should have caused. Ava gave us emails, voice memos, deleted messages, condo lease documents, and a handwritten list Grant had made titled after filing. On that list were 9 steps. Step 4, secure temporary custody before Nora can retaliate. Step 5, control school communications. Step 6, move select assets before discovery. Step 7, if necessary, imply Nora had access. I read that line 3 times. If necessary, imply Nora had access. Ava whispered, "I'm sorry." I looked at her. "Did you help him hurt my children?" She flinched. "I thought I was helping him protect them." "That's not an answer." She cried harder. "Yes," she said. "I helped." I stood. Brooke touched my arm, but I stepped away. For 1 second, I imagined screaming at her until she shrank into nothing. I imagined telling her she deserved everything coming. I imagined letting all my pain pour into the easiest target in the room. But Grant had done that too. He had used women as containers for his sins. I would not become him. "Tell the truth to the court," I said. "Tell the truth to the regulators. Tell the truth to every victim whose money he touched. Then spend the rest of your life being better than the girl who believed him." Ava nodded through tears. I left before I could say anything less noble. The next months were war. Not loud war. Not the kind with screaming in driveways or dramatic confrontations in restaurants. It was colder than that. Motions. Depositions. Asset tracing. Emergency hearings. Interviews with regulators. School counselors. Child therapists. Reporters calling. Neighbors pretending not to stare. Mothers at pickup lowering their voices when I walked by. Grant's face appeared on local news under the words "investment executive under federal investigation." Whitmore Capital fired him publicly and blamed him privately for years of weak oversight. Evelyn sent letters to the twins. The court blocked them after she wrote, "Your mother is confused and your father is being punished for loving you too much." Lily started sleeping with her light on. Noah stopped asking about Italy. One night, I found him in Grant's office, sitting in the leather chair, spinning slowly. "I hate this room," he said. I leaned against the doorway. "Me too. Then why do we keep it?" I did not have an answer good enough for a 10-year-old. So the next morning, I called movers. We packed Grant's diplomas, awards, golf trophies, leather-bound books, and framed magazine covers into boxes. I did not burn them. I did not smash them. I simply removed them, which felt better. The twins helped me paint the walls a pale blue. Noah wanted a Lego table. Lily wanted a reading corner. I added shelves, beanbags, a whiteboard, a keyboard, art supplies, and a big corkboard where they could pin anything they wanted. At the end of the day, Lily wrote on the whiteboard, "This room is ours now." I cried in the hallway where they could not see. The criminal case moved slower. Fraud always sounds simple in stories: bad man steals money, good people catch him, justice happens. In real life, fraud is a swamp. It has documents that contradict other documents. Victims who are embarrassed they trusted someone. Lawyers who argue every comma. Men in suits who save market volatility when they mean theft. Daniel found 87 victims. The oldest was 91. The youngest was a 38-year-old disabled veteran whose settlement money had been placed in what Grant called a conservative income strategy. He had stolen from widows, retirees, and people who had eaten dinner at our charity events while thanking him for taking care of their futures. One victim, Mrs. Helen Barker, was 82. She had known Grant for 6 years. She had sent us Christmas cookies. She had once given Lily a knitted scarf after hearing she liked purple. Grant had taken almost $600,000 from her accounts through layered fees and fraudulent repositioning. When I found out, I vomited in Brooke's bathroom. Because I had smiled at that woman. Because she had trusted my husband. Because evil had sat at my table and asked me to pass the salt. The final custody order came before the criminal trial. Grant tried one last performance. He appeared by video from a holding facility after violating financial restrictions. His hair was thinner. His face was puffy. He looked less like a fallen king than a man angry the mirror had finally become honest. "Nora," he said when allowed to speak. "I made mistakes. But you know I love our children." I did not answer. The judge did. "Love is not the issue before this court, Mr. Whitmore. Safety is." I was granted full legal and physical custody. Grant received no unsupervised visitation. Any contact would be therapeutic, court-approved, and dependent on the children's consent and emotional readiness. When the judge said the words, my body did not understand them at first. Full custody. Safe. Mine to protect. I stepped into the hallway and pressed my hand against the wall because my knees nearly gave out. Brooke hugged me. "You did it," she whispered. I shook my head. "No. We're not done." Because there were still 87 people waiting for him to stop calling it mistakes. The federal courtroom was larger than family court and colder in every possible way. On sentencing day, the benches were filled with victims, families, reporters, former colleagues, and people who had once laughed at Grant's jokes because he controlled rooms with money. Now he sat at the defense table in a gray suit that did not fit him anymore. Ava testified before sentencing as part of her cooperation agreement. She was not innocent, and no one pretended she was. But she told the truth. She described how Grant promoted her, isolated her, seduced her, and then slowly involved her in tasks she did not fully understand until she understood too much. She admitted helping gather information against me. She admitted trying to delete files. She admitted he had promised her a condo, a future, and a family with my children folded into it like furniture. Then Daniel testified. Numbers filled screens. Transfers. Shell entities. Fake consulting invoices. Art purchases. Crypto. Real estate. Client statements manipulated by language so boring it became camouflage. Then Mrs. Barker walked to the stand. She wore a purple scarf. The one she had knitted herself. Her hands trembled around the microphone. "I am 82, she said. "My husband worked 44 years. He trusted me to be careful after he died. I trusted Mr. Whitmore because he looked me in the eye and called me family." Grant looked down. She continued. "He did not just take money. He took the feeling that I could sleep without checking whether the world had moved under my feet." No spreadsheet could compete with that sentence. I saw jurors blink hard. I saw Brooke wipe her eyes. I saw Eva cover her mouth. Then it was my turn. I walked to the stand with my heart beating so hard I felt it in my teeth. The prosecutor asked me what Grant had done to my family. I looked at him. For 12 years, I had softened my words around Grant. I had translated his arrogance into ambition, his absence into pressure, his cruelty into stress, his lies into complicated adult problems. I did not soften anything that day. My husband tried to turn motherhood into evidence against me, I said. He hired someone to follow me to school pickups and pharmacies. He planned to tell a judge I was unstable so he could take my 2 children and move them into a new life with his pregnant assistant. And when his financial crimes began closing in, he positioned pieces of our family finances so I could be blamed if necessary. Grant's attorney objected. The judge allowed most of it. I kept going. I thought I was married to an ambitious man. I did not know I was sleeping beside someone who could rob elderly clients, manipulate a young woman, weaponize his children, and still stand in a ballroom accepting an ethics award. Grant finally looked at me. His eyes were wet. I wanted to feel satisfaction. Instead, I felt tired. The prosecutor asked, "What do you want the court to understand?" I looked at Mrs. Barker. At the other victims. At the empty space where my children should never have to sit. That men like Grant do not destroy lives all at once, I said. They do it politely. With paperwork. With concern. With signatures. With people calling their victims dramatic. By the time the truth comes out, everyone asks why nobody stopped them sooner. I want the court to stop him now. Grant was allowed to speak. He stood slowly. He said he was under pressure. He said the financial industry was complex. He said he made poor choices. He said he never meant to hurt his children. He said he still loved me. But he never said steal. He never said fraud. He never looked at Mrs. Barker and said sorry. The judge noticed. Everyone did. When the sentence came, the courtroom went so still I could hear someone crying 3 rows behind me. Grant Whitmore was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison, full restitution, forfeiture of assets tied to illegal activity, and permanent bans from financial management. Evelyn made a sound like an animal being wounded. Ava closed her eyes. Mrs. Barker gripped her purple scarf. I did not cheer. I did not smile. I simply inhaled. For the first time in years, the air did not feel borrowed. The divorce finalized 6 months later. I kept the house long enough to sell it on my terms. I kept the clean investments, the trusts for Lily and Noah, the legitimate properties, and the assets I had built and documented before Grant could poison them. More than $34 million in lawful holdings remained protected because I had spent years doing the quiet work he dismissed. The stolen money went back where it belonged as much as the system could make possible. But restitution does not pay for panic attacks. It does not restore sleep. It does not erase the shame victims feel even when none of it was their fault. So I created a private support fund for Grant's victims, separate from the court order. Therapy. Medication gaps, housing emergencies, tax help, transportation, whatever they needed that paperwork did not measure. Mrs. Barker was the first person I called. She refused twice. The third time, she said, "Only if you let me bring cookies for the children." I said yes. She came on a Sunday afternoon wearing the purple scarf. Lily recognized her immediately. "You made me my scarf," Lily said. Mrs. Barker smiled. "And I hear you still like purple." Noah asked if she wanted to see the Lego table. She did. She sat in the new playroom, eating slightly burned chocolate chip cookies with my children, and I understood something about survival I had not understood before. Justice is not always a slammed door. Sometimes it is an 82-year-old woman laughing in the room where your husband once planned your ruin. We moved the following summer. The old house had too many ghosts in the walls. Too many corners where I had stood pretending not to know I was lonely. Too many rooms designed around Grant's importance. I bought a house in Evanston with wide windows, a messy garden, and a kitchen big enough for the twins to ruin every pancake recipe in Illinois. On our first night there, Noah asked if we could have breakfast for dinner. "Pancakes?" I asked. "Obviously," he said. Lily added chocolate chips until the batter looked legally questionable. We burned the first batch. Then the second. By the third, the kitchen smelled like butter, sugar, and something I had not recognized in a long time. Peace. After dinner, Lily found me on the porch. She was 11 by then, taller, sharper, still carrying too much behind her eyes. "Mom?" "Yeah, baby?" Was Dad evil? The question landed between us. I could have said yes. Some days, I wanted to. But children deserve truth without poison. "Your dad made cruel, selfish choices," I said. "He hurt people. He hurt us. He will have to live with that. But you and Noah are not made from his worst choices." She leaned against me. "Do I have to forgive him?" "No," she looked up, surprised. "You don't owe forgiveness to someone just because they're family," I said. "If someday you want to forgive him for your own peace, that's yours. If you don't, that's yours too." She nodded slowly. Then she whispered, "I'm glad you fought." I held her close. Me too. Years later, people would still ask how I did it. They expected a dramatic answer. A secret weapon. A perfect revenge plan. Some clever line I delivered while Grant was dragged away. The truth was less glamorous. I kept records. I learned the accounts. I trusted my fear when it finally spoke clearly. I called the right people. I did not confuse being calm with being weak. And I stopped protecting the reputation of a man who was using my silence as shelter. I returned to finance, but not the way I had before. I began advising women who came to me with shaking hands and hidden folders. Wives who had been told they were bad with money. Mothers who had signed documents they did not understand because asking questions made their husbands angry. Daughters caring for elderly parents whose savings were managed by men who smiled too easily. I told every one of them the same thing. You are not stupid for trusting someone. But now that you know, do not hand your power back. Ava wrote me once from a women's facility where she served a shorter sentence. Her letter was 6 pages. She apologized to me, to Lily, to Noah, to Mrs. Barker, and to the baby she had brought into a disaster. I read it twice. Then I put it in a drawer. I did not write back. But I did something I never told the twins until they were older. I created a small education trust for Ava's son, completely separate from Grant, untouchable by him, managed by a neutral trustee. Not because Ava deserved anything from me. Because that baby had not chosen his father either. The last time I saw Grant was on a court-monitored video call 4 years after sentencing. The twins had declined contact. Their therapist supported the decision. Grant had requested to speak with me instead. I almost said no. Then I said yes because I wanted to see whether my body still feared him. It didn't. He appeared on screen in a beige prison room, thinner, older, his hair receding, his eyes stripped of the shine that used to fool donors and waiters and young assistants. "Nora," he said. "Grant." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "Do they ask about me?" "No," he flinched. "They will someday. Maybe. When they do, I hope you tell them I love them." I looked at him for a long time. "You loved what they made you look like." His mouth tightened. "That's cruel." "No," I said. "It's accurate." He looked away. I lost everything. I thought of Mrs. Barker. The veteran. The widows. Ava's child. Lily crying in the car. Noah spinning in that leather chair. Myself reading those papers under the blue light of his screen. "No," I said. "You lost what you stole. There's a difference." His eyes filled. Once, that would have broken me. Now, it was only weather behind glass. "One day," he said, "they'll want their father. And when that day comes, they'll get the truth. Not your version. Not mine. The truth." I ended the call before he could turn pain into performance. That night, Lily, Noah, and I made pancakes for dinner again. It had become our strange little tradition on days that needed reclaiming. Noah was taller than me by then and still flipped pancakes too aggressively. Lily played music from her phone and danced around the kitchen with a spatula like a microphone. The dog we adopted after the move, a ridiculous golden retriever named Waffles, waited under the counter for disaster. The first pancake landed half on the floor. Waffles considered it justice. We laughed so hard I had to sit down. There was no marble island. No leather office. No man checking his phone under the table while pretending to be present. No mother-in-law judging the thickness of my skin. No secret folder waiting in a locked drawer. Just my children, a messy kitchen, and a life nobody was quietly stealing from me. Later, after the twins went upstairs, I stood alone at the sink and watched the dark window reflect my face back at me. Older. Stronger. Not untouched. Never untouched. People love to say betrayal makes you fearless. That is not true. I was afraid through all of it. Afraid in the office. Afraid in court. Afraid when my children cried. Afraid when Grant's name was on the news. Afraid that even winning would leave us broken in ways no judge could fix. Courage was not the absence of fear. Courage was making copies with shaking hands. Courage was smiling at breakfast while planning protection. Courage was telling my children the truth gently when I wanted to scream. Courage was refusing to become cruel just because cruelty had found me first. Grant had planned to leave me with no money, no children, and no name anyone would believe. He forgot something simple. While he was busy performing power, I had been building quietly. And a woman who learns to build in silence can survive the fire, gather the ashes, and still make a home warm enough for her children to laugh again.